Hello and welcome to CHIRP News, working with you to make life at sea safer. Today we're in the port of Southampton. We all rely on each other for safety during the voyage and into port. But we are also dependent on the experience and expertise of others, especially when entering into port, which always requires care and attention, and often a pilot. So it seems doubly wrong that pilots are asked to take risks in order to help us, especially at the point of embarkation. Risks they shouldn't have to take. We'll be reporting on some shocking examples of what pilots face, as well as other access issues and unsafe practices, whichever way you look at them.
Hazards of pilot boarding. In this case, we can see how an inherent design fault has made the tricky business of boarding a ship underway actively dangerous for a pilot. It's clear from this picture that the access door and its platform on this ship are simply too far aft. The fault is compounded by the fact that the access is on a non-parallel part of the ship's hull, which means that at shallow drafts, a pilot boat is at hazard in a swell or bad weather, or if the vessel is turning. Conversely, in deeper drafts, the low position of the platform creates another hazard, since it's less than 5 meters above the waterline. Matters become even more dangerous when the pilot ladder is rigged forward of the platform. The designers of this ship have made pilot boarding an accident waiting to happen.
On investigating, CHIRP was able to establish that the options for changing this hazardous layout are non-existent. The access was sandwiched between a lashing bridge and a lifeboat station. The pilot door's position was also dictated by structural factors, and quite apart from cost considerations, no other position on this ship's hull would meet the requirements of SOLAS 5 Regulation 23 and the IMO Resolution A1045. So, what to do? First, practical seamanship. Careful planning of the pilotage transfer operation is needed, with the receiving ship maintaining course throughout the pilot transfer operation and until the pilot boat is clear. At deeper drafts, it will be wise to remove the access platform completely, thus allowing the pilot boat a clear run. Physical and procedural modifications would help. The platform should be foldable, and if possible not used with the pilot boat close in. Masters should consult a table that gives the true distance at deeper drafts from the access platform to the waterline so as to give the pilot boat a clear run. Guesswork is not acceptable. Extra stanchions like these can be fabricated when the platform isn't deployed to make the transfer into the ship safer. Modifications need to be inspected and certified by class for safety compliance. That is about the only physical modification that CHIRP thinks is practical, even though the pilot boat coxswain may have his line of sight impaired because of the access point being in the flare of the hull. Closer in, the boat's superstructure and mast may get too close for comfort.
A safe means of access at all times. While the design problems we've just reported in CHIRP News are all too real, perhaps there's one step worse, an amateurish lash-up creating further hazard. In this case, one of our reporters spotted what appeared to be a bit of onboard do-it-yourself. Here, a gangway is being suspended on a ship's side in port, with a lifting spreader that appears to have been made from some kind of appliance available in this vessel. To make matters worse, the shackle attaching the wire to the gangway was not in a straight line during the lift. Our reporter decided not to embark until the gangway had been landed and the load taken off the out-of-line wire. A wise decision.
In a report back to the operators from the ship, it was explained that this was an emergency arrangement for testing all the navigational equipment and the main engines. This required that the gangway be pulled away from the wharf fender about 3 meters. That meant it had to be suspended from a crane on the port side. The lash-up spreader was an emergency arrangement to allow it to be lifted immediately, so there was no damage to the ship's side. CHIRP's Maritime Advisory Board accepted the need to test the main engine and the need to avoid damaging the accommodation ladder, but pointed out that certified equipment should be used at all times. This practice of swinging out is often seen, however, when a ship's side is some way off a jetty's hard standing, especially when large fenders are needed for large ships. But that threatens the integrity of the upper platform swivel, because that is not its designed purpose. Brow or clip-on ladders are a much safer bet in these conditions. Emphatically not recommended are stopgaps, literal stopgaps, like this shocking quick fix. It may look like some kind of prop for a slapstick comedy, but it could have consequences about as unfunny as could be.
Simply unsafe practices. We have two such practices for you. In the first case, a sailor was observed painting the anchor of his ship by dangling over the side of the bow on a rope ladder, or possibly a bosun's chair. Sight lines were unclear. What was clear was that he had no hard hat, no life jacket, no harness, no man ropes, and no lifebuoy nearby. In the second case, a sailor was seen using a rope ladder overside without wearing a life jacket. Here, attempts to contact the third party were unsuccessful, though Port State Control were aware and active. But in the first case, we were thanked and told that procedure had been reviewed, once more, with all the crew of the vessel, along with warnings that any deviation would not be tolerated.
CHIRP's Maritime Advisory Board asks seafarers to ask themselves if it's really worth serving in vessels with such a low safety culture. But beyond that, both these incidents underscore a simple point. Your personal safety is up to you. Whatever the compliance, whatever the supervision, whatever the rules, it's your life and it's your friends and your family that will be devastated if you lose it.
Well, that's it for this CHIRP bulletin. But before we go, our aviation colleagues are seeing an increasingly number of reports of drink and drug abuse, bullying and sexual harassment. If any of these issues are impacting you and the safety environment on board, please let us know. Whatever the cause for concern, please contact us through our website, www.chirpmaritime.org. We can all work together to make life at sea safer. Bye for now.